thank you all for coming.
There you go.
We have a couple of things brewing today. We have board elections to do, and the board positions are chairman, which my name has been submitted. The vice chairman is Tom Karsten. And the treasurer, we don't have a secretary. The treasurer is Cynthia Knox, and we have two new board members up to be elected tonight. They are Bill Franklin and Victor. Say your last name for me.
Hoogreven.
What is it?
Hoogreven.
Norwegian. So, if I can have a nomination to, well, first, is there anyone that wishes to volunteer to be on the board for any of the positions? No? Okay, may I have a nomination that we accept the nominations as presented?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, we have two. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So that's passed. Now the National Night Out is August 2nd, and I have a few flyers that you can pick up. And the address to register is shorelinelaw.gov/NNO. And you can take these with you if you want. The second page is a list of activities that I found on the internet, and I just thought might be helpful to, whether it's somebody that's done it once or never done it, or has done it 50 times. So these are for the taking. There's also the coloring books for Shoreline, the new economic development project promoting Shoreline, and you're welcome to take these. So, our program tonight is parks, and they are doing a new program and trying to find out what the public would like. And we are very fortunate to have 3 parks members here to tell us about their program and ask you a lot of questions and get feedback from you. So first I'd like to introduce Eric Freely from Parks Department. He is the director. And then, do you want to introduce your staff, or do you want me to?
Either way.
Well, my buddy and Jim, Kurt Peterson, is in charge of the crews that maintain the parks. And I go to him when I have problems, or if he can't handle it, he sends me to Eric. And then the other person here is our own Bill Franklin, who's a new board member, and he is on the Parks Department Tree Planning Committee. Is that right?
The board.
Board.
Yeah.
So I'll turn it over to you, Eric.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for letting us spend some time going through our planning process. I'm going to go through a little bit of a general introduction, sort of set the stage for the planning process that we're underway with. Then we're going to turn it over to Kirk and Bill to go through a series of questions that we've put together to try to get some discussion and comments about the planning process. So this is Shoreline's plan for Parks, Recreation, Cultural Services 2017 to 2022. And you'll see the heading Securing Our Foundation, Shaping Our Future, which is sort of the tagline that we put on this planning process. The idea that the city of Shoreline, incorporated almost 21 years ago now, inherited a bunch of parks from King County that had been maintained mostly. They were in awful shape, but they weren't in really very good shape. And the city of Shoreline has invested a lot of money, a lot of time improving the park system. And so it really has a strong foundation of parks and recreation programs. And so we have the recreation staff, the teen programs, adult programs, special programs for people with special needs. So you all have really invested. And what I tell people is if we do nothing else through this planning process, we want to make sure that we secure that foundation. That if moving forward, we were to let the park system, the recreation programs decline, that would be unacceptable. So we really want to have a plan in place that secures that foundation. I think most of you recognize that there are a lot of changes. Change is constant, but over the next 5, 10, 15 years, there are going to be a lot of more changes that come to the city of Shoreline. Perhaps the most visible is the light rail stations that are scheduled to open in 2023 and the rezoning around those two station areas. However you feel about that, it's a thing that's happening. And there will be more different kinds of people move to the city of Shoreline as more density develops around those two station areas. Outside of those station areas, we see a lot of changes in demographics. A lot of people are surprised to hear that the demographics of Shoreline almost match identically the demographics of the city of Seattle in age, race, ethnic background, income are now almost identical to the city of Seattle, which indicates that there is an ongoing shift in those demographics. The school district is growing. They're moving forward with possibly rebuilding their middle schools because of the influx of children, the growth of children in the city of Shoreline. And then one of the sort of outgrowths of the rezoning at 185th around this light rail station there, and the fact that the station is coming, is that the Spartan Recreation Center that's operated by the Parks Department is in the old high school gym, and it just happens to be the building that is closest to the light rail station. So that raises a question, probably not in 5 years, maybe in 10 or 15 years, there's probably going to be a higher and better use for that piece of property than at that point, 70 or 75-year-old gym. And so what do we do about a recreation center, recreation programs? The pool, Shoreline Pool, it's a little farther away, but it's almost 45 years old. By the 5 years it'll be 50 years old. It's of all the forward thrust pools that were built in the 1970s around King County, it's one of the few that is still operating in basically the same configuration. That's a real testament to the care that the city of Shoreline has put to that pool, but it's still not going to last forever. And it was closed for the past 4 or 5 months while we invested money to redo the pool lining, some of the plumbing, some ADA improvements to keep it operational for 5 to 7 years. But then what do we do after that? So there are some significant changes that we need to prepare for. So we started this process, and many of you may have participated in the Parks, Recreation, Open Space Plan in the past, the PROS plan, that is required by the state of Washington every 6 years in order to compete for state grants for certain programs and projects. So we have to do it as part of our state requirements. But we're really looking at this time as a little bit bigger project. So we've started this outreach effort back in January, did a statistically valid survey, ended up with about 850 survey responses, which was 300 more than we expected. So we've got a lot of good data from that survey. We've done asset inventory and condition assessment of all of the parks, facilities, and buildings, and we counted the number of benches, assessed what condition all the benches are, picnic tables, ball fields. So everything in the system now, we have a really good understanding of what it is, where it's at, and what its condition is. We're in the middle of a market analysis and recreation demand study. So the recreation demand study is really looking at the demographics of Shoreline, what that projection looks like over the next 10 or 20 years, recognizing that people want different kinds of recreation services at different stages in their life. People with different ethnic backgrounds want to recreate in a different way. And so the demand study is really going to help us identify sort of what those changes are so we can project what kind of recreation programs we may want in the future. The Aquatic Community Center feasibility study. So we're looking at the what it would look like if we built a new pool, a new aquatic center, and a new community center. Would those be two separate facilities? Would they be combined? Would they be at the locations that they're at now? Would they be at a different location? So really looking at the feasibility of something new compared to renovating what we have. The park and open space plan for the light rail sub-areas, station sub-areas, recognizing that there's going to be more density in around 145th and 185th Street. Going through that planning process, there was a lot of discussion about, with this density, what kind of open space is there going to be, so putting together a plan specifically around that. And then an update to the public art plan. The public art plan was done 6 or 7 years ago. It ends at the end of 2016, so we'll be updating the public art plan as part of this process. Been going out, talking to all the neighborhood associations. I think at this point we've been to, after tonight, we have one next week, Hillwood, and then we will have been to all of the neighborhood association meetings since February. The Park Recreation Cultural Services / Tree Board is heavily into the planning process. They've been briefed at their monthly meetings, providing input, have set up subcommittees, so they're an active participant. We have a community-wide online questionnaire, and I'm going to pass out some business cards. At the bottom of the card is where you can go to take the questionnaire. Take as many of those as you like and hand them out to your neighbors. It's only live until the end of June, so you only have another 10 days or so to fill it out. And the idea that it's not going to be a statistically valid questionnaire, but what we really wanted is an opportunity for people to give us ideas and give us their thoughts and their feedback over a longer period of time. If you can fill it out more than once, if you fill it out today and have a different idea on Friday, you can go back and fill out another one. So it's about generating ideas. Public workshops. I'll pass these around. You can take several if you want to hand them out in your neighborhood, post them someplace. We have public workshops scheduled for September 20th, October 19th, and November 1st. So those will have some ideas that we've gathered from meetings like this, from the surveys, all the other information that we've gathered. So we'll have some ideas that people will start reviewing at those public workshops. And then on January 7th, we'll have a big public open house to sort of look at where we're at and what the plan is looking like before it goes to the City Council for approval in the spring and summer next year. We've had meetings with existing user groups, we call them stakeholders, and so teens, athletic field users, community gardeners. We've pulled different stakeholder groups to sit down with our current users. We've had meetings with underserved communities. We had a meeting with seniors, with renters. A lot of times renters in the multifamily buildings don't participate, so we reached out to them particularly. Recent immigrants. We had a group of about a dozen recent immigrants that we were able to get contact with and have a meeting specifically with them. Latino, we had a Hispanic community meeting where we brought in translators for all those groups and really tried to get an idea of what their needs are. And then a public art forum, so really focused on public art. So I'm going to turn it over to Kirk. One other thing that we'd like you to do is we've got these demographic note cards, and so we're just trying to keep track of who we've come in contact with. So if you could fill that out and just leave it up here before you leave, that would be great. And I think one other thing, we usually have Maureen Palazzi here to do all this, and she couldn't be here tonight, so I'm trying to make sure I'm going down the list, because if I come back to the office without all this paperwork, then she'll let me know that. So if you don't mind signing the sign-in sheet as well, that would be great.
I think we have one somewhere.
I have some. So I'm going to turn it over to Kirk. He's going to spend a few minutes going through the parks in MeridianPark, and then Bill's going to come up. We have a series of 6 questions that they will go through. And any questions sort of generally about the...
Do you have any idea what kind of usage the existing pool gets?
We do. And I don't have it off the top of my head, but we have waiting lists for most of our swim classes. End up having waiting lists. It's busy from 5:30 in the morning until 9:30 at night, weekdays, and weekends the hours are a little shorter, but it's pretty constantly used. The hours are a little restricted now because it was closed and we just reopened it, and we're having a little bit of a challenge hiring enough lifeguards to open it the full schedule. So we'll probably be back to the full schedule in probably September. We think we'll be fully staffed.
So a couple hundred people a week, probably?
Oh, probably more, yeah.
Oh.
Are you with us the entire evening?
I'm going to have to take off,
Okay.
but
Then
Kirk,
I have a question for
Okay.
you before you go. And that is, is the Parks Department the last stop in terms of dealing with the homeless population in the Parks Department, in terms of that responsibility for dealing with that, or is it another department within the city?
we're kind of the last stop. Kirk can talk more about sort of the extent and what we actually do. But that's a conversation that we've been having a lot internally in the
I
city.
would imagine so. It seems like it's a difficult thing.
It's a difficult thing, and it's an increasing challenge citywide. And the system that we've used up till now has worked well. But I think as there's more, the city of Shoreline is going to have to figure out a little different response, especially to the homeless encampments and the parks, and being able to have a couple people that you can move along fairly efficiently. As there get to be more, and it gets to be more constant, I think there's going to be different response. But it's Kirk's team that really does that interaction in the face.
So we can talk about it more.
Sure.
And that, and what would be helpful is your comments and thoughts about how that is important and what we ought to be doing with that.
I think we're on the edge of one of the parks that has, we are on the edge of one of the parks that I believe it has one of the major problems of it. So that's right. We see a lot of it.
Which park is that?
Ronald Park,
Ronald Park.
yeah. So I would like to talk about it. Thank you for
Thank you.
your.
Yeah.
Kirk and his group do a great job. At one point, they start work at 6 o'clock in the morning, as
Wow.
does Kirk. So, so kudos to him for being here. I want to really appreciate the work with Bill and the other members of the park board do, because they've been at every one of the meetings with us, one or two of the park board members, so they're investing a lot of time sort of as your ongoing representatives to the city. And so we really appreciate all the extra time that the board members put in. So, and appreciate your time for being here. So thank you.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
Take off. Kirk, you're in good hands.
Well,
Thanks.
thanks, appreciate it. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for having us tonight. I'm Kirk Peterson. I'm with the City of Shoreline Parks. I've been with the city since January of 1999, so it's been a while. I think I've known Gretchen all those years. She's been a dedicated volunteer, and we keep telling her we're going to double her salary every year as a volunteer, but she doesn't. But I think I've seen most of the people in the room at one time or another. So the folks in the MeridianPark Neighborhood Association are pretty lucky because we've gone to various neighborhood associations. Each one has a kind of unique set of parks within their neighborhood. But you guys have some really kind of unique areas. Historically, yeah, you have 5, so you have more than a lot of neighborhood associations. So for example, the top one on the list, most of you, I'm assuming most of you lived in your neighborhood quite a while. Has anybody lived there less than 5 years? You're probably the only one. And you too, okay. Where'd you come from before?
Well, I was living in Ballard.
Oh, okay.
But I've only been here for 6 months.
Oh, really? What brought you up here? Just like Shoreline?
I used to live at Shoreline, but it was farther south. And I sold that when I bought this place with an elevator.
Oh, that sounds good. Well, good. So Cromwell Park, most of you, I don't know if you ever remember the original Cromwell Park. It used to be an old school site, and it's about 7 acres.
Yeah.
But it used to just be flat, dry dirt. When they took the school off, I think.
Soggy in the
Yeah.
winter.
Yeah, it was just terrible. So we did a joint project with our surface water folks, and since your neighborhood is somewhat dead center located at the headwaters of Thornton Creek, you have a lot of surface water and environmental issues within your parks, which is somewhat unique. So if you may remember that we reworked Cromwell Park, and that's about a 6-7 acre park,
Yeah.
and we added wetlands, which actually turned out to be a nice environmental feature of the park that people really seem to love. And Gretchen had some ducks out there that she used to tease the old parks director about. But that really turned out to be a great project, and that park turned out nice. It's really popular. It's one of our more popular neighborhood type parks where people can actually walk into the park, walk around and enjoy it, and then walk back home.
It's busy every dry daylight.
I would say Cromwell and Paramount School Park are probably our 2 busiest parks, even though they're not our larger regional parks, like Hamlin or Richard Meade Saltwater Park, but they just get so much use because of the neighbors, so they're perfectly functioning neighborhood parks. Interurban Trail, that's about 3.5 miles. It starts at 145th and it goes all the way down to 205th. It's unique. It's not city property. It's Seattle City Light easement for their utility, but they gave us a ready use easement on it, and that's how we have the trail. So we just get to maintain it and use their property. And it's, as you know, that's very popular. Darnell Park is kind of unique because it's right next to the Interurban Trail. And do most of you know where Darnell is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just a little park. So we have 165th is right here. And then Darnell's about 0.8 of an acre.
Wow.
And it's classified as a natural area. I know Bill's pretty familiar with it. And it's kind of an odd little setting of land. It's kind of triangular in shape, but it also serves as surface water function. So whenever there's some large storm event or rain, it'll actually fill up. And the odd thing about that, Gretchen probably remembers, at one time the creek would fill up, but it wouldn't backflow out. It actually goes, I think, under Aurora and actually ends up in Bowling Creek watershed. So it's a unique little park in itself and the way that it functions, but during heavy storm events, it'll actually fill up with water and drain out.
It's the well, it's a cute bench, and
Yeah.
a few big rocks looking into the water, and And it took me 3 or 4 years before I figured out it was what it was.
Yeah.
Most people don't know.
Yeah.
It's sort of hidden,
Yeah.
and the only access is from the interurban trail.
Right.
And I wanted to show it, you won't be able to probably see it very well over there, but we have a new sign now.
Oh.
As of about
Well,
Yeah,
that was
it's
down there
good.
looking
a
at
half ago.
it. All right.
So this is fronting the trail there, right by the benches, so it has an identity now. People
Cool.
now know it is a public park.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to be initiating sort of a volunteer group of neighbors to go in and do some cleanup in that park as well. So
Oh,
that's more to
cool.
come on that.
Excellent.
Good. So it's a unique little park. Now
That's
park,
something that next door, you could use next door as a way for organizing people.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
another little park is the park at Town Center, which is actually right up here. A lot of you, the older, longer time residents probably remember when it was it Ronald Lane, the brick lane that used to run through there?
Yeah.
Probably.
Ronald Way.
Yeah.
And we left the bricks, and there's a semi-master plan for that area where they would like to develop that into kind of a central meeting spot for possibly farmers market or something of that nature. So there is some plans for that whole area, but we call it the park at Town Center. And we think it has a lot of potential, so we'd like to get your feedback tonight on what you think of
That's kind of cavernous and empty right now.
that. It is. It really is. It's just kind of, we saved the road with the intention of something that a landscape architect would come up with something really neat, or an urban planner.
It's fun to see the sculptures along there.
People love the artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shoreline Civic Center. So that's in, we consider that part of your neighborhood? As far as when they reference Shoreline Civic Center, what do you guys envision?
Is that Shoreline Center?
That's what I'm envisioning too, but I know the boundaries kind of blur sometimes, so when I look at these. But that's an interesting area in the respect, with the light rail station coming in, it's obviously going to affect everyone. And that's why we want to kind of get your
Where is-
feedback.
Is that what Shoreline Center is? Is that
That's what
Shoreline
my
Civic Center
assumption is, yeah.
What,
And I know the,
America?
yeah.
So that's really Echo Lake.
Yeah, and also North City, when we went to them, it kind of bordered their boundaries too. But we
Well,
would like,
North City starts on Fifth,
does it start on Fifth? But a
so
lot
and
of
that's
people-
on First or Second maybe.
Yeah.
And they kind of consider Cromwell part of their park too, so.
Hey,
North
hey, hey,
City.
get
All right,
off. Get
North
off
City.
my- Get off.
No way.
That's
But
our-
you guys
that's our
have a
park.
lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
So we would like to get your feedback for that general area, knowing that light rail's coming and the station's coming, what you envision for those
Probably
areas.
gonna be condos someday.
It's a good question. I think the density does increase
Yeah.
quite a bit, so as far as the planning, I think there's that possibility. Ronald Bog Park, that's an interesting park, I'm sure you're all familiar with that, it's on First
Yeah.
and 175th. And it's about 13 acres, and as I was looking at this today, preparing for the meeting, I looked up the old history, and it goes way back to Native American days. It was a spot where they used to harvest cranberries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the 1940s
And
and
watered
50s.
their cattle
Yeah, what, cattle?
and picked strawberries.
Really? And then I read in the 1940s and 50s, it was a peat bog,
Yeah.
which was interesting. And then it became a park with King County in 1972, and we took it over in 1997. So that's one of those parks, it's kind of a question for us. It's classified as a natural area, but it has a lot of potential depending on which citizens are interested in. It's being part of the Thornton Creek watershed, that open lawn area that's possibly used for something else, increasing tree canopy, restoring the area of native habitat. We'd like to get your feedback on that. You guys have, or maybe you like the open area. Depends on what you guys
A lot of people run
interested
their dogs there.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a popular dog spot.
A lot, we see a lot of that. We live right across the street from there. I mean, right across the pond from there. We see a lot of people taking their dogs there and running them
Yeah,
across the.
sometimes families playing, I don't know, games and stuff, during the year.
Possible dog park.
We see there's a lot of wildlife at that park. There's otters and beavers and great blue herons and eagles and all kinds of stuff.
Really?
A lot of ducks, a lot of
I've
geese.
seen people fishing in there.
Yeah,
People do
they
a lot of
I
fish
see the
carp.
turtles too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the turtles on the log especially.
Yeah.
People love those turtles. And you guys have probably seen how many people stop and take pictures of those turtles.
Yeah.
Now, Meridian Park, that's about 3 acres. Are most of you familiar with Meridian Park? You are?
Yeah.
It's another natural area, and it's 3.1 acres. It's bigger than you think. And a few years ago, we did a project with our surface water folks. We went in there and reworked the wetlands, and replanted with native habitat, and we put in new trails so you can walk all the way around the park. We've had some active native plant stewards there over the years. And it's a surprisingly nice, quiet little park. Once you get in there, there's lots of wildlife and birds. You have a little bit of wetlands. And it's a good one to enjoy. It's another one, nice one that people in the local neighborhood have an easy time just walking through.
It's nice for a quick walk through.
Yeah.
It's relaxing.
And it's not always just teenagers in there. See a lot of kids in there playing. We talked about Darnell Park. James Keel Park. Who knows where James Keel is? That's good. That's more than most people. Because James Keel is an interesting park. Most people have seen it as they've been driving down the freeway. It's about 3.5 acres. And it's right at the very end of 167, maybe just north of the transfer station. It's right up against I-5. And it's kind of one of those parks, it's always been kind of a challenge for us what to do with that park. We tried scheduling soccer there before. We used to have play equipment. Tennis courts are really dilapidated there. And it's right on the freeway and it's really loud. It's kind of a challenge for James Keel, and there's not much parking. But there's a lot of potential in the respect. It's perfectly flat. It's about 3.5 acres.
I
It's
still
just a
think
sound
we should do a
issue.
garden there with raised beds.
That's a good option. Really good option. So anyways, that's kind of what we were hoping tonight, that we could get your feedback. And I know Bill's probably got a few things to say, but and I was going to write things down as we go, but if we could get your feedback, we'd like to know what you're feeling on the parks. Doesn't have to be just your parks. But any thoughts you have would be really helpful for us. On the homeless issue, what should we do? It is an increasing problem, and you bring up a really good question, and you're right. The interurban trail area does have a lot of homeless people, and anywhere around the bus stops, and a lot of the parks, it's one of our more frequent complaints about homeless camping in our parks. And when we do get notice that there's camping in the parks, what we do is we go on site. If we can't find the individual, we post their tent with a notice, please remove it, and within 3 days, if not, we're going to remove the materials for you. And that's kind of the protocol we've been following. Most people are very good. We've had very little problems with them not moving, but they might just move to another park. We do offer showers for them at the Spartan Recreation Center to help folks out. But it is, you're right, it's an increasing issue. It's one that technically the parks close at night, so they're not supposed to be in the parks. But I do get a lot of calls from citizens who are concerned because they'll walk in the park and they'll see things that make them scared. So between the police and ourselves, it's a pretty common call. We try to follow as humane standards as we can, but it does seem to be an increasing problem. So the city's going to get together with our community services and our police department, try to come up with a proactive plan. They do frequently heavily visit our parks.
I think that it's only going to get, I think, I was going to say worse, but these are people, so I don't want to say worse. I think it's going to increase because the problems that cause homelessness are not being addressed in our society. And so I would like to step up as a citizen and say, I'm willing to help work on this problem. and volunteer.
We appreciate that.
So, I was asking Eric, like, who's the last stop in the city about this, so, would like to interface with you or whoever it is to start working on this problem, because these are real people who are out on the streets, and they have real needs. It's not workable to have them living in the parks. What's happening now in our neighborhood is that not only are they living over there in Hop Block, but they are now, someone has come over in the bushes next to our house. We live on the other side of the park, at the end of Corliss, and they're stashing a backpack and a duffel bag that has, backpack with clothes and a backpack with a blanket. So that's obviously somebody who has no home. I'm trying to do that. So I think this is gonna start coming around to our street. So something has to be done. And I think other cities are coming up with solutions. I think we can, find out what other cities are doing and come up with some good solutions. And I'm willing to dig in there. I know the city has, a certain amount of resources to work with. I'm willing to donate my time to help.
Appreciate it. I'll have to get your name and number.
My understanding is that Federal Way has taken a pretty proactive approach to all this, quite the opposite of what Seattle's doing. I guess it's not clear what Seattle's doing yet, but we might look into Federal Way's approach. I heard the mayor on the radio some time ago, and he said it seems to be working. They have a plan. It seems to be humane and effective, and it's fairly energetic, from what I vaguely understand.
That's interesting. We'll have to, so we're gonna work with Rob Beam in our community services. He's gonna be heading up the effort. Well, I'm sure Gretchen knows. Yeah, and we've had a few initial meetings on it with the police department and all the various, even our traffic engineering staff, because it's safety and our police department. And that's interesting on Federal Way. It seems like I did hear something about that. We had some city council meetings with a proactive approach.
I think the essence of it is that they offer services, but they don't want to be denied. And they proceed straightforwardly if things don't evolve in the way that they wish. Let's put it that way. Some people end up in jail. But they're not tolerating things that are going on in Seattle, period.
So it's just camping in a park? Is
And much more,
Yeah.
Well,
To
even
mention gun
using
place.
the restrooms for overnight.
That's a frequent complaint, yeah, particularly at Echo Lake Park, it's, you're in a methadone clinic.
I think there's a lot of drug activity happening over in Montauk Park.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
In which part?
Montauk Park.
I think any place that there are trees and shrubbery that can hide them, there's activity.
And what is the actual law regarding solicitation? I mean, I know there's no solicitation from door to door, but what's the situation with people standing on the corner of the end of the freeway asking for money? Because those people are like walking into traffic and stuff like that.
I heard that's not against the law. I brought that up and they said it's not against the law. They can do
Yeah,
that.
with the First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, I think that's covered, that's allowed. But there is the safety issue, which
Yeah.
you're very right about, because there's surprising number of people who get hit on those corners. So that's something our traffic engineer is constantly trying to deal with. So it's a good question.
So, but, if there is a way that we can, do something to help some of these people who want some help.
With addiction issues, yeah.
Or addiction, or just, who are just on the cusp, where they just need a little something to get back.
That's a very good point. And I think that's what Rob's heading out on the Center for Human Services on 115th.
Yeah.
I remember what days. Trying to get the word out on those programs, because I think there are quite a few things that the city does offer. or not necessarily the city,
And
but
Hope
the
Lake
gym.
also has a lot of.
Hope Lake, there's a lot of very charitable, good people, volunteers working to help in the system. I
There
think
is.
Getting the word out to them.
Is there someone that makes rounds at certain times at the parks, or is there?
Yeah, we open everything at 6 a.m. and then our police lock up all of our parks at
Oh,
9.
okay.
So by ordinance, 45 minutes after dusk is when we try to close them, but if the police have an emergency, sometimes it's later.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the protocol. And we work every day of the year, so it's busy and hopping.
So it might take also coordinating with city council to pass some ordinances. This might be like a whole coordinated effort.
True, that's a good point. We do have no camping in our ordinances, which is where we cover most of the issues, and most people are really good about moving on quickly.
But the thing is, this moving on business just really, we're just
Pushes them to
shuffling.
another part,
We're just
right?
shuffling.
Yeah, it doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
You're right.
All right, so what do you think I should do? Are you going to?
Well, I've got your name,
Connect me
Cynthia.
to Rob, or am I supposed to, or what?
Either way, or I'll talk to Rob tomorrow.
All right,
You know Rob?
I don't know him well.
Okay.
If you want to talk with him,
I'll talk with him.
okay,
Yeah.
I can give you my number.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be good. So, also look at the Fed Play program. That looks nice.
One would imagine that the methadone or whatever this clinic here, near the trail and the high school would fit under this general awning of interest.
Yeah, the police have a real problem with the methadone clinic, and they work with them, but there's some laws that keep them from doing too much, and they can do so much,
Yeah, it's a
but
challenge.
it is a problem.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Well, we have about 6 questions here that we're going to go through, so feel free if you'd like to give us some input, your opinions, or any comments on these as we go through, please do. But first, I just want to say a couple things. Thanks again for supporting me and joining the board tonight. It's just coincidental that I'm also here representing the Parks Board tonight, so but I appreciate that. Looking forward to working with all of you. So, as far as the Parks Board, I'm in my first term. I joined the Parks Board about a year and a half ago, and the main reason is I just love the parks and trees that we have here at Shoreline. I've lived here at Shoreline for about 10 years now. Before I moved here, I used to live in Ballard, and I used to ride my bike up to Edmonds and back to Ballard. And so I used to have this route that would sort of take me through back streets. And as soon as I crossed 145th and went by the golf course, I went from this just asphalt, very, very unpark-like into lots of trees and parks. And I just, it was such a difference, and I've loved Shoreline ever since then. So when I started looking for a house, I didn't even look anywhere else other than Shoreline. I loved it here. So yeah, it was about 10 years ago. So I was looking for opportunities to help out with our park system, and I was sitting in just as a member of the public at the Parks Board meetings, and then I found out there was an opening for a board member, so I applied for that. That was about a year and a half ago. So the first question that we have here is, what is your favorite Shoreline park and why? Does someone want to sort of kick us off here with your favorite park?
Mine's Cromwell. That's obvious. I can roll out of bed to it.
Yeah, you're right there.
So other than proximity, is there another reason why it's your favorite?
Well, the natural area, it's gotten a little bit too much overgrowth right now, so there aren't so many ducks, but there were baby mallards and baby kingfishers who are really funny with their little top notch, and they paddle around. And we have walked my grandpuppies in the park, and they stand there and watch the ducks and are quite fascinated. And Kirk has a story he can tell about that.
Gretchen used to email our previous parks director, and she did it anonymously once. I think it was a complaint, concern about all the ducks in the park and this, that. And my boss came up to me and said, "Oh, what are we gonna do? People are concerned. There's ducks in the park, and people are concerned about it." So anyways, he was really concerned about it. I don't know what you said in that email, but
It was written from a dog complaining and talking to the ducks.
anyways, it completely worried my boss.
Yeah.
And, Gretchen got him through more times good on the dog thing, or duck thing. So it was pretty funny. It was a good joke. I liked it because it was my boss.
Well, because I'm closest to it, the park that I know the best is Ronald Park.
Okay.
And that is my favorite park. And it's because it has water and land. And because it has a tremendous amount of wildlife. And we get to watch the wildlife
Yeah.
and experience it in our backyard.
We call it Lake TV.
Lake TV is what I got. And so, I've gotten to see eagles for the first time up close. And I've gotten to see an otter up close come into our backyard. Stalked our chickens, actually. And gotten to see a beaver. It's cut down some of our trees. We're not very happy about that. Ate our blueberry bush, but that's the price of living with all this wildlife. And love the turtles. And I also love the fact that I love the fact that I was able to learn about the history of Ronald Bog through the museum. I did that because I wanted to have a festival at Ronald Bog and wanted to celebrate the past, present, and create a future there. And so I went to the museum and talked with Vicki, and she was very generous with her time. So it just really bonded me to the land. And having the festival at Ronald Bog and having everybody come there and learn about the history too, just really has given me this sense of just sweetness about the land. I just feel very like I'm connected to it. I help other people be connected to it. This feels really solid.
That's great.
At one time, MeridianPark had over 40 different animal pictures taken from somebody that lives next to Cynthia.
Wow.
Different
All the
native animals and.
the animals, yeah.
Is that Marty?
Mhm.
Yeah. He's still taking them. We had
I know.
Canada geese come into our backyard. They come and they walk right up to our French doors in our lower part of our house, and they poop right next to it.
Arthur B.
But they're cute.
How about anyone else?
We're very fond, is it called, the park with the tennis courts, Shoreview Park?
Sure.
Shoreview Park. Yeah, because not only has it got the tennis courts, the play fields, the baseball field, and then the fantastic forest right there. I mean, you walk in there and in 90 seconds, you could just almost be in the Olympics. And then the little creek is fun to watch along there. That's a fantastic resource for a suburban town.
Where's that at?
It's right behind Shoreline Community College.
Oh,
Yeah, just keep going past the college along the road that's on the right.
oh,
And
Yeah.
it connects up to Bowman Creek Park. If you get on the trails
Yeah.
and the trees.
Yeah, you're in a forest
Yeah.
instantly. And the tennis courts are priceless. I mean, up on the little bluff or whatever it is then. And of course, in the summer, the YMCA has a lot of their kid programs there.
Yeah, that's a beautiful park.
Yeah.
I really love them.
Interesting.
Isn't there an area of that park that's a dog park too?
Well,
Or is it-
on the upper plateau, we turned that into a dog park. Actually, the community college had expanded their parking in there accidentally. Not really, I always knew it was the city's property. Once we found out, we took it for a dog park, which is surprisingly popular.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, you bring up a great point, because I think Shoreview is 72 acres and then Blowing Creek's 42. But if you throw in the way the community college's property all blurs in, I've done area fields with GIS, you're looking at about 130 acres, basically heavily forested. Really great hiking, beautiful area, so that's a good point. So even though it's not all parkland, part of it's community college, it's all public land, it's all yours, so people love that. I'm always amazed how close that is to Seattle and how we don't have, because when I leave Hamlin shop at about 5 o'clock at Hamlin Park, a lot of times it'll just be a steady stream of cars coming in from Seattle. But Shoreview doesn't seem to get that. They've never quite discovered it, so bring up a good point on Shoreview. An interesting
The
thing.
windy roads.
Yeah, maybe it's the windy roads or people's,
People don't know how to find it.
yeah, I think you're right. And we have an old sand-based soccer field there at Shoreview, you're probably familiar with it. And it doesn't get any use, doesn't get scheduled anymore, and that's kind of one of those things. We're not sure, we're hoping to find out what the pros want, possibly what to do with that field. Now, I don't know what the answer is, we'll see what the public says. But it's not getting much use. The school districts put in all sorts of synthetic turf fields. So, those old soccer fields, and nobody wants lights down there, so. It'll be interesting what the public wants to do with that. Could be community garden, could be, who knows what. So, okay, that's good to know about Shoreview.
Anyone else have a?
I like Hamlin Park, you brought that up, that dog's no longer with me, but I used to walk my dog there quite a bit, and I picked the blackberries and eat them as we walked, and I liked the fact that we could walk through the trees, and then you get in an area where you had picnic tables or things like that, and then you had other areas where they had games or whatever. I just thought it was pretty diverse and fun place to walk around in. You really did kind of feel like you weren't right in the city once you were in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really feel like you're way away from the city.
Yeah,
That's the nice thing.
so I really like that. And I also like the interurban trail, and I like it down by Echo Lake. If you walk, like I live on 180th, if I walk there down to Aurora Village,
Okay.
I like walking along there too, and walk along the lake, and they've improved that park, and
That's a good point.
really nice, so. Gets a lot of use, I think.
Is the heavily forested area just south of Shorecrest High School? Shorecrest, yeah. Is that a park technically?
Yes, that's Southwoods.
Southwoods?
And,
Fantastic place.
I've been there too.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We bought that, remember what year that bond was? Or, it was the last bit of developed property. Krukenberg, SPU property next to Hamlin, there was 8
10
acres.
years ago?
Was it that long ago?
You said great.
But Shoreline's pretty built out, and we did a bond to get all the very last bit of open space we
Oh.
could.
The bond issue.
That was a while ago. But you're right, yeah, that's a great, I think it's 17 acres, if I remember right. And,
A forest right in our backyard.
Yeah.
Not like Hamlin, but I mean,
Yeah.
just fantastic.
That whole area used to be Navy base,
Yeah.
and there is a treatment plant on Shorecrest property that they dug up when they were doing the remodel that nobody knew was there.
Huh.
You know, there's a tuberculosis sanitarium in
Right.
Illinois.
Yeah,
I learned that from the museum.
yeah, well, that's still part of Shorecrest.
Well, saltwater park because the beach.
it's amazing how little beach access there is in the Puget Sound.
Yeah, I was looking at that map. I was curious about that Innis Arboretum Reserve. Is there any access to that? I've never been there.
There is. And the best access is right down 15th. And it ends at a guardrail. So you get on Springdale, and then you would just go due south, and it ends at a guardrail. And there's a trail system that'll actually take you all the way up to the lift station on the other side, but it's really steep. It's popular with the people who know about it. They cross the railroad tracks to get to the beach, and they get their own private little beach. It's not legal to cross the tracks, but at low tide you can easily walk there from the water park. But it's a beautiful park. I can't remember offhand. I want to say 22 acres or so. And there are some trails in there, and hardly anybody uses it but the locals. The teenagers have discovered it. They can park down here. But it's a great park. It's actually one of my favorite parks just because it's just so heavily wooded. It's beautiful. Hardly anybody uses it. There's lots of little creeks in there. But yeah, if you want to go, yeah, just down the 15th, there's a little bit of parking. You can probably fit 2-3 cars in there.
Anyone else have a favorite park? Well, the next question, how important is managing the vegetation and trees in our parks and open space to maintain our community character and environmental health? That's a tough one. Does anyone?
I think the vegetation is important. You don't want something getting all overgrown, especially if it's not native. You know, if it's weeds that aren't native and they're just taking over or something like that.
So remove the invasive.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah. Not easy with blackberries.
Yeah.
I think it also has now to do with it looking also like it's maintained so that it doesn't become a place where people start congregating and living outdoors. Because I'm having to work with our next door neighbor to, like, we live on the corner of a street that is not maintained by the city. It's we call it the grass street. It's got some gravel on it, but really grass is growing on, so we have to mow it. And it's the dead-end Corliss, goes to Ronald Bog. And I think one of the reasons that somebody parked their stuff behind a bush, a homeless person parked their stuff behind a bush, was because, you know, the grass got a little bit long. And so I think this is one of the reasons we have to maintain the parks,
Vegetation, yeah.
so that people don't start camping in there.
That's a great comment.
Most of the people in Shoreline like the tree canopy, and they want to maintain it. Trouble is, some of our trees along the streets were planted that probably are not appropriate because they tear up the streets and roads. So,
Certain trees have the wrong tree species.
yeah,
Or they chop them all up because of the power lines.
yeah.
Like I think Meridian, there's section Meridian
Yeah.
that's experiencing that. I mean, beautiful trees, but I know the sidewalks are suffering over that.
There's one area on Meridian that has no wires. They somehow got underground wires. And you
No,
notice,
they don't have underground.
well, I don't see any wires up there. They
Where?
just stop. I don't know, it's kind of down 150 something like that. Maybe a little part. What's that?
Oh, in the Parkwood area.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's one section along there that doesn't look like they have any, like they're underground.
Yeah, that's a tricky question, so it's just like, you know, there's the management of the trimming of it, but then there's also the, sorry, well,
Yeah, why did they plant all those trees along there when they had the
that was
overhead
done by
wires?
Forward Trust in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
What we've
And they
done-
widened the street and paved it with concrete and put in sidewalks.
Those
And that
planter
was when they
strips are
built the
really
pool.
narrow. Yeah, our new planter strips need to be a minimum of 4 feet, because things get redeveloped. That way you have enough room for tree species. As it is now, you've got these big, beautiful London planes
Yeah.
and sycamores and these little tiny
Yeah.
2-foot, it was just the wrong species for
Yeah.
the planter strip one. But those were planted back in 1969.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah, I know, nobody around today is responsible for it. It's just
Yeah.
really sad to see those cherry trees all chopped up and everything.
right under the power lines.
Yeah, yeah.
Just-
I would say that for me, it's incredibly important that we have as many trees as possible for our human health to be filtering the air.
And I like it when they plant trees, like one kind of tree north and south, and maybe a different kind of flowering tree
Yeah.
east and west.
Not have a monoculture, kind of mix it up a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, so that you have trees blooming at different seasons.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's nice.
I've seen it in other communities and it's really pretty.
Just as an example, like in Ronald Bog, we had that big storm that happened. And back in this it happened this past year. And a number of trees got uprooted.
Oh,
And so I just didn't know whether those trees were going to get replaced.
yeah. Yes. We try to replant everything at about a 2 to 3% ratio, so anytime we remove a tree. It's not always necessarily on the same site, but Ron Bog's the corner site. And actually, the Rotary Club's put in a nice little arboretum they keep working on.
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
got that over on the other side, but the trees I'm talking about are the ones that are in the main meadow there on the
Silver
perimeter there.
maples, I think
Yeah,
they were.
those
Yeah.
were gorgeous trees, and it was so sad when
That was
they got
sad.
uprooted. And,
We took a beating this year during that summer. We had saturated soil and then it got wet. They hadn't lost their leaves yet and it just acted like a sail.
Yeah,
My
well-
cherry plum tree fell over in that last windstorm. Uprooted.
The beavers go under and eat the roots.
Well, do they?
Yeah, they go, actually, you have to be careful on the edge of the bog because you'll fall in where the beavers have gone dug in and eaten roots. And so the soil will collapse.
And there was the, people use the bus stop there at 175th.
Yeah.
They call frequently thinking kids are in there chomping on trees and this is the beaver.
Yeah.
So
We
it's-
had them take down, I think, when MeridianPark was doing a project, well, one of our many projects down there. I think they took out 5 trees that we had just planted
Oh, my God.
in 1 year.
Yeah.
So we had to put fencing around them, and then people complained because it was fencing. That was the only
How
way we
you
could keep the
survive
beavers
with
away.
beavers, you
Yeah.
gotta put 3-foot high fencing around anything I don't wanna lose.
It's smart. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
so that's a question I had about, for Ronald Bog. There was a period of time where there was a person who was part of the MeridianPark Neighborhood Association who was doing, organizing doing a lot of gardening over there at Ronald Bog Park. He was taking out invasive plants,
Yeah, Dick,
Dick Becker.
yeah.
And so what I wondered was, like, what responsibility do neighbors have for maintaining parks? And what responsibility does the park system have for maintaining parks in that sort of situation? Because nobody's been doing it since Dick stopped doing it.
Right, that's a good question. We have volunteer services agreements, so if the neighbors want to do something in the park, maintain it, restore habitat, it fits in well with our previous PROS plan. We need all the help we can get. On most issues, we always try to follow 3 things. Safety, so if it's a safety issue, frequently we get calls about homeless issues or dogs off leash or where a tree might fall on their property and stuff. So we try to do everything we can to do that. address those issues. And then if it comes down to aesthetics, say there's issues with a fence or something outside your property, we try to be the best neighbors we can. We can't always do everything people request, but until we hear from the neighbors, it's usually not an issue until we know about it. If there's a concern, you can give us a call if you want to be a volunteer, improve. Because, you know, when you live up against the park, it's just an extension of your backyard, I'm sure you feel that way. And we want to be good neighbors. But yes,
We
it's
can on our
different.
side of the pond, I'm talking about the other side.
Oh, the other side?
Yeah.
Like by the bus stop, well, like, you know, it's not just the big trees, I like the smaller stuff, and like, yeah, I like berries, so like the native berries, so it did my heart good when I saw there were a couple of Saskatoon serviceberry trees near the bus stop on 175th at Roundabog. But, you know, it's getting kind of taken over now by morning glories and blackberries and stuff, you know, so I
That's the
understand
thing.
there's limited budget, you know.
That's kind of the feedback we're looking for tonight. So if you really feel like it's being taken over invasives and we're not doing enough on restoring native plant materials, things of that nature, that's what we want to do.
You know, it's great in like the landscaping around City Hall, you know, you've got salal berries and you've got, you know, huckleberries and different things. It's, you know, I love to see that in my parks, to see the native berries, you know, the lower stuff, not just the big trees.
That's a good point, the understory.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay.
So there's ways to volunteer, I guess.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm solving the homeless problem, you
All
work
right.
on the other side.
Yeah.
Well, we have about 20 minutes left, and we have 4 more questions, so I'll try to
Okay.
get through these and spend about 5 minutes on each.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.
So
Try to sneak out of here.
the next question is, what are some of the biggest challenges facing our parks, trails, and open spaces, our recreation and cultural programs, and our facilities, the pool, the rec center, Richmond Highlands Rec Center, and the Crockford Botanic Garden?
I think you got had a good point, is are we gonna keep the old ones, or the man before you talked about that, are we gonna keep the old facilities, are we gonna build them? I mean, I think we'll have to build new ones.
Mountain Lake Terrace, they have a spectacular pool. you know.
With a river, wouldn't that be fantastic?
We would love
You
to
know
do
that, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, when my kids were little.
Yeah, I love that.
That was great.
Has
This one's got a view.
Has the existence of the relatively new YMCA made a dent in our usage of the city pool?
That's a great question. We thought it would, and if anything, not at all.
Really?
Wow.
Interesting thing is, the Shoreline, our public pool is quite a bit warmer than YMCA.
Oh,
That is,
That's what I've heard, I haven't been to YMCA, and a lot of people are really into the athletic side of it, workout, love the colder water. But we offer all sorts of arthritis programs,
Yeah,
and personally, I'd much rather swim in the water pool myself.
yeah.
So,
Me too, I don't enjoy it.
it's almost like they've chased a lot of the hardcore people to the Y and opened up more space for little older folks and kids. And our pool's open from about 6 to 10:30 every night. It's just
Wow.
full the whole time.
Yeah.
5:30 is when the swim club started, 20 minutes. So
Now, is that for, how much of that is free swim time? Like, if I wanted to just go down and swim after work, would I be able to?
I'd have to look at the schedule. They have lap lanes, and then it's pretty scheduled out. 'Cause
That's
it's
what I
actually
thought, because I
school
kind of
district
did,
property.
because I was kind of turned off by that. And the same thing with your water aerobics classes, if you're working, they're not really
Yeah, it's so
scheduled where I
popular.
could go.
Right.
8 at night or something, I get up at 4:45, so it's like,
And every group, whether it be the water aerobics or whatever, the Cascade Swim Club and the school district, everybody's trying to get a piece of the time. So
yeah.
it's a battle, it really is. And
Yeah.
then these summer months, it's completely full of kids and swim programs. And
Yeah,
but the seniors really use our pool a lot. It's very popular with the seniors.
so probably if I was home during the day, then that would be a
Right.
good option, okay,
Right. But you're right, it's amazing how busy the pool is.
yeah.
It's just really popular.
I think one of the things we have to be concerned about is, I think our parks are lumped to death. And they're really, I mean, Cromwell is used all the time. Whether it's little kids on the play equipment or mothers with babies that are watching other kids play, or the young men that play basketball. That's, you know, every day there's kids in, and then some of the older, I suppose, maybe 20s kids drive in for basketball games there. So I don't know if they live in Shoreline or if they live, you know, outside. But,
That's a good question. It's one of the few outdoor courts around,
yeah.
and it's very popular.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And 7 days a week, people just love the parks, and a lot of the fields are used till 11 at night for athletics, and I think, like we all know, with light rail, our density is going to get more intense.
Well,
This is part of
do you
life.
see seniors walking early in the morning and at midday too? And
I see
it's used by all
a lot of
groups.
seniors, and the thing I hear a lot from seniors, how much they love the nature trails, walking trails, along with other folks, but I think seniors in particular have an appreciation for forested areas and nature and things. It's really important to them.
What about, this is just sort of an aside to this question, but does anyone have any opinion or comment about the dogs in the parks other than the dog parks themselves? And I only bring it up because I was at the farmer's market a week and a half ago at the booth. We had a booth there for the parks department, and I was just asking people for comments, and it was probably over half of the comments I received had to do with dogs. Either we need more dog parks, or situations where there was some interaction between park users and dogs that were sort of negative. So anyway, I'm just curious, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think people don't like dogs running loose.